Hey everyone, Ed Kennedy from Vibrant Money here. I am joined once again with my partner in Shine, Morgan Guerin. Hi.
Hi, guys.
So let's dive right into a very important topic for many of your clients and people in general, emotional spending.
Yes.
So there's spending and then there's spending that's tied to emotions.
Mhm.
And we want to help people understand how to interrupt those patterns. So, why do people struggle with emotional spending?
Well, because it's emotional. So, it's usually that it's those emotions that kind of come up, they flare up for any given number of situations, and we tend to try to soothe ourselves. So, it could be stress spending. It could be spending because you're feeling sad or lonely. There's even revenge spending when you're
Mm,
mad at your partner or something, or, kind of like, well, I'll show them. And so there are many different things that we do to try to soothe ourselves when we're having an emotional upflare for lots of different reasons. There's often stress at work. I know just over the last year with the pandemic, my stress has flared up and it has led to, even just like, oh, my body's so achy. Now I need to buy these. I need a new foam roller and I need a ball to roll out my hip because it hurts. And so it's sometimes connected to what's going on in our life. And we are ultimately usually trying to make ourselves feel better in any number of different ways.
yeah, it's been said in other spheres, and we've discussed it that a lot of people's difficulty with money is not mathematical. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily about the dollars and cents themselves. There's emotion that's driving a lot of their behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I tell my clients a lot of times, it's got everything to do with money and it also has nothing to do with money. If you have a really rough week at work, you might think, oh, I am just going to relax and blow off some steam this weekend. I deserve it. I'm going to go shopping, or we're going to go out to a really nice dinner, or I'm going to take the kids out for something fun. Granted, we've been limited lately, but those are some of the things that tend to happen. I mean, they're not joking when they say retail therapy. Like there really
Mm.
is, and it's because there's an actual dopamine hit that we get when we go out and do something we enjoy, or we acquire something new or pretty, something that we've been wanting. We actually do have a chemical reaction to it that helps kind of smooth over the emotion at the moment. So this can actually become a cycle. And, sometimes it's not that big of a deal, but sometimes this can wreak havoc in our lives and in our finances. And it also then kind of allows us to skirt around dealing with the actual emotion.
Mm.
So there can be multiple impacts kind of across the board, financially, emotionally, in your communication with people in your lives. So it's something to become aware of.
What can people do to interrupt emotional spending? I think a lot of people wake up the next morning almost like a hangover
Yeah.
and they have buyer's remorse, or they start to feel even worse after spending because they knew either A, they didn't need it or didn't really want it. And they become somewhat aware
Yeah.
that this was emotional spending. How do you interrupt the cycle so that it happens less or doesn't happen at all?
Well, like I just said, the key is to becoming aware. So I actually have people work to increase their point of awareness. And what I mean by that is just the moment at which you become aware of what has happened. Sometimes that is well after the fact. It can sometimes be weeks, months, years later when you realize, oh my gosh, I've racked up the credit cards. How did I do this? Or it might be like you're saying, where it's like, ugh, you know what? I went on a shopping spree. I'm not feeling great about it. Or, oh gosh, we really overspent on eating out this week because I was so overwhelmed with work, right? Like we've run into
Telling our
that
story. Yep.
ourselves. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, we were overwhelmed with work and we just ordered takeout to kind of like meet the need in the moment, and then you look back and you're like, oh, dang, okay, that got expensive. So it's really taking the time to tune in and start to even notice when you become aware. Like, where do you realize, oh, I've been spending emotionally? You might not even notice. It might be, something that kind of slips below the radar for you. Or like I said, you might tune in and wake up to what you've done at various points in the process. The reason that can feel so surprising or feel it's got kind of an ick factor to it sometimes is because, like I just said, you're not actually dealing with the emotion that led you to the soothing, the attempt to soothe yourself to begin with. It's like, oh, okay, I feel better now, and you move on, but whatever was going on probably still hasn't necessarily been dealt with. So not only do you sometimes realize, oh gosh, look what I've done. I really didn't need to do this. Or at the very least, now your resources are gone. And then you still are kind of left with the feeling that originally kind of flared up to begin with.
Yeah, maybe some other feelings about the behavior itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you've mentioned in the past becoming aware when it's happening and before it's happened.
Yeah.
So you're saying you may become aware at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And then there's becoming aware now or before it happens.
Yeah.
How would someone go about actually raising their point of awareness, either during the emotional spending or before?
So to your point, what you're saying is there's basically a phase, and it's a series, almost a sequence that people go through where, if they notice, oh, I'm doing this and I don't like it. And that's the first moment of awareness. And it's usually after the fact. So there's kind of before, during, and after that you might notice, dang it, I did it again. And here we are. So I've been talking about kind of noticing it after the fact. And then you kind of have some of those remorseful feelings or those feelings of guilt or frustration. And believe it or not, the fact that you're even noticing is a success. And it's often an improvement for people because, like I said, in the past, it might just kind of fly below the radar for some folks. You don't really even notice it. You just, something happened and you're just kind of like, well, dang it. And so believe it or not, tuning into, geez, I don't feel great about that is actually an improvement. From there, the next improvement would be to notice it while you're doing it. Sometimes it's like, ooh, okay, I'm out and I'm spending this money. And to be honest, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyways. It's what I want to do. It's what I want right now. And that is an improvement.
There's that
like,
F it moment where you're like, F it, I know I'm doing this and here we go.
Yeah, well, it's that whole I deserve it or I need it. You feel like, yeah, F it, I don't care. This is going to make me feel better. And my clients are often surprised to hear me say that is an improvement because they're like, but I want to stop doing it. And it's like, okay, well, then that's the next step. Ideally, as you're becoming more and more aware, ultimately the goal you're trying to get to is that you realize what you are about to do. Sometimes you still go do it. Again, that's an improvement. But the real place that you're trying to get to is becoming aware of what you're about to do before you go and do it, really actually tuning in to assess what's going on, why you have this urge. And you may decide still, you know what, I actually really do need to do this for myself. And that's coming from a place of health and awareness and intention and self-care rather than this place of, I don't care, I want it, this is going to make me feel better. And I'm not really concerned with the impact. So it's becoming aware before and then actually assessing, is this what I need in the moment? Would this be most helpful? Or is there something else I could do for myself to nurture myself in a different way?
Yeah, I can think of a couple of examples in my life. The small examples are the breakfast burrito and Del Taco runs.
Right.
When I'm feeling anxiety or stressed or even boredom about like what's for dinner, it's like I'm out and I'll just
boredom's a big one. Yeah.
I'll go spend money and usually it's on food.
Yeah.
And then, but there's been other bigger purchases. Like I bought a drum set for my 30th birthday and I put it on my credit card. This was years before you and I worked together, but I never really accounted for what was driving that, the emotion that was driving that purchase. And it
Mhm.
was like, I deserve it. I want it. I am going to have it. And then the pain of that, the consequence of that only got felt when I started working with you to pay off my debt. It was like, then I
Yeah.
had this, that was just one of many examples of how I had added to my credit card from emotional spending. And maybe I could have gotten that drum set a different way.
Yeah.
Or if I would have chosen, I would have maybe found a way to pay it off faster and not deal with it years later.
Right. Yeah. Because then it just got kind of bundled up inside the money fog. And it's like, well, you may have either made a different choice. You may have looked into creative ways to get that. Like maybe a friend had a drum that they no longer wanted. Maybe you could buy a used one.
When I went to like
You know.
Guitar Center and bought a brand new
Right.
set,
Yeah.
because that's the state of mind. I didn't do any conscious consumption, and I didn't
Exactly.
go look for other ways to get it. I didn't go on Craigslist or anything. I was like, I want this, so I'm going to pay this high price that maybe I didn't need to spend on.
I want it now, and I'm going to go get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of emotional spending from your past?
Yeah. Well, I was just kind of thinking, I mean, even just in general, I do enjoy shopping. I used to have a big shoe fetish that has kind of, calmed down over the years, but I was never a really big retail therapy shopper. My thing was always quality time. So my top love language, for those of you who are familiar with the love languages, is quality time. And so I would spend money going out with friends. And a lot of times that might have been going out and shopping, or going out to dinner, going out for drinks, going out to a concert, or, something. It was always to kind of soothe some boredom, some loneliness, some escapism. Like at that point in my life, the relationship I was in wasn't working. I was very overwhelmed and stressed by work. So I would often just want to say, hey, I don't care. I deserve it. I'm exhausted. I'm stressed. I'm whatever. Let's go party, basically. Let's go have some fun. And that in and of itself is not a terrible thing to do, but I was very unconscious while I was doing it. I was overspending to a detriment to myself. And again, it was great in the moment. And, I have had some wonderful experiences, but I wasn't actually addressing or dealing with any of the areas in my life that were causing me to go out and do that. At one point, and this was, after I had already known a lot about money and known a lot of the risks around credit cards and debt and everything, I put a vacation to Ireland on the credit card. And I said to myself, well, that's okay. I'm going to put it on the card, and then I've got the cash. I'll pay it back. But then when it came down to paying it back, I didn't want to let go of my cash. And I was like, oh, I better hang on to that. What if I need it? And so then I ended up stretching out the payments to pay it back. And, I did get it paid back relatively quickly. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it was definitely, not only was the purchase made as an emotional reaction, my choice to actually not pay it back in full like I had planned was another emotional reaction.
That's a very
Sometimes
powerful,
it can be very layered.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's very layered in where emotion touches our money and how intertwined and how they affect one another. This has been great. Thank you so much for talking about raising your point of awareness. I think that's the key takeaway, is that that's what you've got to do. If you can do it during or before, that can help and be progress towards interrupting the cycle. But I think ultimately what you're saying is, you got to go deal with the actual source, which are the emotions.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, how you do that is often just building your connection to your money. So I'm talking about these emotional epiphanies that have happened, but okay, how do you get there? And not just kind of scold yourself or feel bad about what you've done or feel frustrated because you can't seem to tune in and figure it out. And really the most direct path is in establishing a deeper connection to your money. This is what I teach, I preach. This is where I'm always coming from, is establishing that deeper connection and really examining how you're using your money. So, I always tell people the number one thing you can be doing for yourself is spending time with your money. And in spending time with your money, you're tracking your spending, not to be boring, not to, kind of tell yourself what you can and cannot do, but to inform yourself and see what you've been doing with your money so that you can decide what you want to continue to do with it. So I've got clients who track their spending. And a lot of times what we do in the memo field of a transaction is actually put in the feelings that were happening when they went and did some spending. And, sometimes there's nothing much to say about it, but it can be very eye-opening to actually see how you're using your money and then connect it to a feeling that you were experiencing in the moment. So that's how you begin to increase the awareness so that you can say, oh, look what I do. Interesting, good to know, just good information to have. And then that way you can kind of interrupt it sooner in the process. And then you might notice, like I said, you might notice when you're doing it, and then ultimately try to get to that point where you can notice it before you're doing it.
Yeah, these are such great pointers and a place to start. If you're looking for more information on emotional spending or on many other money topics, you can go to our website, myvibrantmoney.com/blog. That's a great place to start and just read up on the latest articles and watch videos like this. Thanks so much for chatting with me, Morgan, and sharing this information.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.